Hey, it's Denise. I am going to try to get a couple videos done quick. Did one, just posted a little while ago, reviewing City Beauty skincare products and cosmetics. That's why I'm wearing this bright red lipstick and no other makeup. So just try not to be distracted by the clown red lips, which would probably look awesome if I, had makeup on the rest of my face. But we move on now to other things. I wanted to go over just a couple small items that maybe on their own wouldn't be necessarily worthy of a full video, but a couple things I've gotten recently that I think were cool purchases and that I'm happy with and that I would recommend. Some of these are going to be of much greater interest if you're someone who does home canning or dehydrating or food preservation of whatever kind, who gardens, who... I hate to even use the word prepper because some people have a sort of negative connotation, like prepper is right up there with cult member or extremist or those god-awful white supremacist groups who are referred to as preppers, but really they're stockpiling guns and ammunition for the race wars that they think are coming. Just want to make it clear, none of that is my agenda. I'm definitely of the, I like to garden, I like to save money on food, and I like to have food that's healthy and I know what ingredients are in it. And I like to be prepared. I live in a very rural area. The power does go out. It's been out for days and days at a time on a few occasions since I've lived here. And it's a good idea to have at least the bare essentials of what you would need to get by in the house. A company that I do buy, now this has nothing to do with Amazon, but a company that I do buy some long-term storage food and other like water purification and those type of items to keep on hand, I buy from My Patriot Supply. You can check them out, and they offer a zillion things. They have, for every level of you just want to have a little bit of extra long-term shelf life kind of food in the house for either emergencies or for just easy daily use, because they are convenient foods, although it's not the cheapest convenient food. To me, home canning is the best way to take that block of frozen meat and turn it into something that's right on your pantry shelf that you can quickly turn into a meal by mixing it with some veggies or sauce or pasta or rice or whatever it is that you would mix it with to make a meal out of it. I've got to stop saying I had to resist the urge to re-watch the video and count my ums, because I realized that I was just saying it way too often and it's annoying. So I'm going to try to be mindful. If there's a quiet pause, it's probably me catching myself about to and trying not to do it. Anyway, so with that in mind, yeah, I can do a whole video on things that I have gotten from My Patriot Supply. That'll be a little longer video. But today I just wanted to go with some small items that I've gotten recently. Mostly I purchased them through Amazon. I will mention which company they come from if they're not Amazon fulfilled, if they do come from an individual third-party seller through Amazon. And again, if you're the least bit into making sure that you have food stability and or you just enjoy home canning and food preservation both for your own use or to give as gifts, then some of these things are good to have on hand. One of them I haven't even tried yet. I ordered it specifically so that I can do a recipe that called for it, and it's an ingredient I've never used before. So let's get started. I also have, well, maybe I'll do that separately. My sort of crazy idea list of projects that I want to try. I think we'll hold that off because that could take up its own time. Let's get into the couple things I bought. These, I just bought my second box of. And let me find the box that's already open because it'll be so much easier to show you. This is the full box. Okay, this is the full box, which I just received because I loved the first one so much. If you do home canning, you know that you don't store your stuff once you open it. Once you've broken the seal, you don't really want to store it necessarily with the metal lid and ring in your refrigerator. You can. People do it, especially if they're going to use the thing up very quickly. But for something that might be in there longer, like say a jam or a jelly, something that can take a good amount of time to use up once it's open, or if you're giving it as a gift and the person is going to be more comfortable, the more traditional sort of lid once they open it, as opposed to the lid and ring that you canned it with, I think these are super. As you can see from the box, you get 16 lids. There are 8 wide mouth lids and 8 regular mouth lids. Each one, they come like this. So you get one color, one pack, I should say, in each color, and each pack is a wide mouth and a regular mouth. As I started using these, pretty much the second I got them, I was like, you know what, Denise, you're going to need more of these. So, I know it's probably self-explanatory, but I just wanted to show you. So they pack them to save space and not have to use a bigger box. They pack your regular mouth lid in with your wide mouth lid in one package. So each of the little 8 packages you take out is going to have 2 lids in it. So then when you remove the original sealed lid and band from your jar and are now using it as an open jar, you can pop one of these on it during the time you're using it until you finish it up and get around to washing your jar. And then these are, of course, washable and reusable. So if you're someone who home cans, then I would definitely recommend them. I got these on Amazon. I should probably show you again because I don't think I even mentioned the brand name. It is Sensible Needs. And again, 16 plastic storage lids for regular and wide mouth mason jars. So I find them, like I said, the second they came in the door, it was like by the next day I was already using them. Once you unseal a jar, you really, it makes sense to have something like this to use on it. You know, unless you're using the whole thing at once and just washing your jar out and throwing out your lid, it really does, to me, make sense to have something like this around. So now I have 2 boxes of them. The other canning related item I bought recently. Now I ordered this on Amazon, but it comes from a third-party seller. The granny glasses may have to come out. Oh, for a second there, I thought I misplaced them and all would have been lost. I've been wearing them for years. My cataract surgery was like 5 years ago. I think I would be used to them, but the glasses never fit me right. I have a small bridge to my nose, and they just always want to do this. Which is great if I want to look over them and totally get the old lady librarian look going, but I'm trying to look at least somewhat normal. It's a joke. I've got bright red lipstick and really gray roots that need dyeing. I think probably the glasses are the least of the problem at the moment. Anyway, So this is, the name of the product is Clear Jel Canning Thickener. If you're not familiar, when you're canning, pressure canning especially, although I believe water bath canning, it applies as well because people use it for jams or pie fillings that they're going to be canning. And they generally do those as water bath canning, not pressure canning. So the problem with trying to do things like that and can them yourself is that regular cornstarch or other thickeners that we would use break down in the canning process, and you can end up with like a very watery instead of a nice thick, like what I'm going to be doing is an apple pie filling that I want to do some mason jars of, so that I'll have it on hand, homemade apple pie filling for when I want to bake, and I'll know exactly what the ingredients are in it, which, you know, control freak tendencies, I know, but I prefer that. And also, it's not just my opinion, it's a lot of people's opinion. Food that's kept longer term just is better if it's kept in glass than it is if it's kept in aluminum. You just want to keep it out of the sunlight. So you don't, display it in your windows. You have it in a cabinet, preferably. If you don't have cabinet doors, you hang like a little curtain. You make a little DIY, trip to the fabric store, and you just, if it's an open cupboard, you just make it like a little, like the equivalent of like a bed skirt, just some pretty fabric to cover that you're just using it as storage space for your extra canned foods, and it keeps the sunlight off them. So I ordered some Clear Jel canning thickener, which is a processed, I don't know the actual process. It's a modified cornstarch, essentially, that does hold up to being canned. And that way you will get that, I don't know how to make this sound like not a negative. When you get a store-bought pie or store-bought pie filling, it has the fruit isn't just dry or in juice. It's in almost a slightly thick, not jelly-like, but there's definitely a thickness to what isn't quite liquid around it. And it keeps it moist and thicker, and most people prefer that texture in a pie filling rather than just the dry fruit. Now, some people like the drier fruit, and if you like your fruit drier, definitely, you probably don't need this. I wanted to give it a try, though, because I've never tried to can. First of all, I've never tried to can pie filling, so this will be my first time doing that. And I watched if you watch Linda's Pantry, I watched her apple pie filling canning video, and she uses Clear Jel, and hers looks like it came out pretty much perfect. So I'm going to try that. She said that she used the recipe out of the Amish canning cookbook. I happen to own that book, so I'm going to give that a try. So the ingredient I needed was the Clear Jel. I found it on Amazon. It comes from a company called Kaufman's Fruit Farm and Market, which is in Pennsylvania. So I got it. It comes in a 2.5 pound bag, which might seem like a lot, because if you're thinking like regular cornstarch, which maybe you're only using a couple tablespoons of, when you're doing a whole batch of, I believe in the video I watched, she made like 6 or 7 quarts of apple pie filling. So you're doing a pretty large batch if you're going to bother spending the time to can stuff. You're usually not just making 1 can. So I think it used like 1.5 cups or something, or 2 cups in the recipe. So it may look like a lot buying it 2.5 pounds at a time, but if you think that you're using like 2 cups at a time, I imagine it will go pretty quickly if I decide that it's something that I like, and I'll probably be reordering it soon. So the only thing I found a little peculiar, I'm very happy they have it carefully double bagged. They have it appropriately labeled. The only thing I found a little strange, and this is just me, there are people who will not find this strange, but if I'm ordering, just say, on Amazon, a totally non-religious related item, I think it's a little weird that you send me the Gospel according to St. John. I have nothing against the Gospel according to St. John. I just feel like I don't shove my religion in your face. Please don't shove your religion in my face. We're of different faiths, clearly. So I just don't see that as professional. Now, I know to some people, their religious calling tells them that spreading the word is more important than coming across as professional. I can respect that about their beliefs, because my beliefs tell me to respect other people's beliefs. I only wish everyone else's beliefs told them to respect mine. Now, having said all of that, this was the only thing I found a little off-putting, and like I said, a little. Minuscule. Tiny bit. But enough that I felt like I should mention it, because I didn't ask for religious information. I asked for, modified cornstarch, essentially. So I don't want to feel like, like when you answer the door and it's one of those religious groups that feels the need to try to convert you. If I want to be converted to something, I'll reach out to someone in that group and say, hey, give me some information, because what you have looks like what I'm interested in. But I'm perfectly happy with my my faith, and so unsolicited religious material in with an order that had nothing to do with religion, I just thought was a little bit strange. But again, the product looks like exactly what I want. They have a nice little thank you note at the bottom of the packing slip, that they're a small business. They appreciate that I purchased from them, that they have a website with recipes and deals, which their website is kaufmansfruitfarm.com. So I suspect you could probably order directly from them. Or, like they said, at least you can check out their recipes and stuff. So that's another thing that I got recently. Now we're going to move into this is, you're going to say, Denise, you're getting a little further off the mainstream here, perhaps. But again, it's your idea of where does just common sense, it's a good idea to have products that you might need on hand. Where does that line, come for you? They say that the average American household, I don't know how this holds up around the rest of the world, but supposedly the average American household at any given point has about 3 days worth of food. And in the event of any sort of natural disaster, just ask the people who lived through Hurricane Katrina or Hurricane Andrew or any other disaster in which services, both, water, sewage, the ability for official help to get to people, those things were cut off for long periods of time, much longer than I think anyone thought would happen in the current modern day and age. But you can have, you can be without power You could be without access to get to a grocery store that has power and therefore is not likely to be open. If you live up in the sticks like I do, it's even more vital that you are self-reliant in terms of having the stuff that you and your household members, by which I mean human and non-human, would require. If you had limited access or no access to a supermarket or even a water source, because again, if you drink well water, your water is electricity dependent. The power goes out, so does the water. So where you live, what your circumstances are, whether it's the zombie apocalypse you're worried about, or the government collapsing, or the, big earthquake that you might fear is coming, whatever situation, even a simple thing like someone losing their job and temporarily having a lower income can impact your ability to grocery shop like you normally would. So to me, being a little self-reliant, knowing that I have food put away in the house that would sustain me and my son and my dog, to me that's just common sense. And so I think I kind of fall, I don't even think I make it to the middle. I think I'm probably still at the more basic end as far as people who do what you might refer to as prepping. I'm not a gun person. I'm not a, worrying about the rioting in the streets so much. That's not my real concern. I think for people who live in the city, that, urban areas, that might be a real concern in the event of, any sort of prolonged emergency situation. But for people who live out in the woods, kind of like I do, the bigger reality is just the lack of power and the lack of running water and the availability of food stores that would be open because they're not going to have power either. Or whatever they have on the shelves is going to fly out really fast. So I'm certainly not one of those extremist, I'm not crawling around my yard in camo with a gun, stalking the neighbors just in case they have their eye on my, canned goods. But that doesn't mean that I don't believe in being prepared for unforeseen circumstances. So having said all that, I just wanted to show you a couple things that I got that do kind of fall under preparedness in my mind, because they're things that I got not necessarily to use right away. They're things I got because you can store them for a while. And they're things that you really can't, or at least aren't supposed to by safety standards that are published, home can. That's not to say that people don't home can some of these types of items. There are a lot of people who do, and there are YouTube videos about them. They, will all tell you, though, right up front, that it's not an approved method. It might be something that their family's been doing for generations or that they've personally been doing for years, but that it is not approved by the agencies that oversee safety of home canning and stuff, or by any of the companies that make the home canning products that we use. So you're kind of doing the rebel canner thing if you can some of those products, such as dairy or bread items. So while I might get bold and try that, in fact, it is on my to-do list to see, well, not the butter so much, but I was going to try, I've seen lots of videos on people doing what they call oven canning, which is not a real thing. Just to be clear, lots of people do it, but it is not an approved method of safely canning food for long-term storage. So if you do it, you're kind of doing it at your own risk. I mean, anything you do, you're doing at your own risk, but that you should know that if you're doing it, it is not an approved method. You're not going to find it in any official respectable guide to safe canning, because now here you can jump on the conspiracy bandwagon if you want to. There are those who say it's the reason given by the government in the United States for why you can't can dairy items is because there have not been adequate studies done proving that it can be done safely at home. Now notice, there was just a little gnat there. That's not what I want you to notice. Notice, they're not saying there are studies saying it's unsafe. They're just saying there aren't studies saying that it is safe. And again, I don't know why this just one tiny gnat came out of nowhere. It's freezing out. We shouldn't have gnats. I digress. Gnats have a way of doing that. I find them very annoying. So there are those who believe that it was purely lobbying on the part of the dairy industry to stop people from home canning dairy items, to keep us dependent on buying them fresh, which would help subsidize the sales of the already struggling dairy farmers, because if people realized that they could just can their extra butter when they got it on sale, or yeah, you can freeze your milk and then thaw it and use it and it's fine, that then we wouldn't all feel obligated to rush out and throw out any unfinished dairy products the second the sell-by date hit them, and we would run out and buy new stuff. So there are plenty of people who believe that that's the reason that even though their grandmothers, mothers, everyone else canned with dairy and never had a problem, they think it's pretty much more of a industry-supported, intentional lack of studies were done to encourage people to buy fresh dairy and not to can their own. Now, of course, there are other people who just simply say, hey, there weren't studies done, so if they can't prove it's safe, then why would you do it? And that is a totally individual decision as to whether or not you would want to try something that is not an approved, sort of globally recognized as safe practice. With that in mind, I did buy two things that were not considered safe to home can, so that I would have them on hand in the event I needed them. Now, one of them was a little pricier than I really wanted to spend, but considering that you're not supposed to can butter, and there is a company in New Zealand that cans butter, I did order. It was a 12-pack of, I forgot how many ounce cans. I think 12-ounce cans. I was lazy and did the math, though, for the total amount. It's like 9 pounds of butter divided in 12 cans. And I did see someone use this butter in a video I watched. If you ever watch Emmy Made in Japan, which her YouTube channel, it's just one word, EMMY, Made in Japan, one word. She did I think she called it a post-apocalypse breakfast or something, video where she used all canned items to make a breakfast. And one of the items she had was this canned butter. So that's where I got the idea that it existed even, and, finally did find it and realized Amazon had it. And I went ahead and ordered the 12-pack. And it arrived yesterday. So it is heavy. Like I said, it's 9 pounds of actual butter, and then it's divided into 12 individual cans. I have not opened the cans yet. I figured we could do that, but I did take it out of the giant Amazon shipping box that it came in. You can see it says Red Feather, which is the brand, Pure Creamery Butter. Let's see what we got. Let's see which side of the box opens. Here we go. I could have dumped those all out. The side of the box started to open. So here is the individual can. I'm holding it upside down. I'm holding it upside down. Here we go, Denise. This is why you need to edit, so you can get rid of those moments where you hold things upside down for people to read. So it is butter. It is 12 ounces, so like 3/4 of a pound, or 340 grams if you measure in grams. From what I saw in Emmy's video, it was very yellow and creamy, and it actually, the look of it reminded me, if you've had Irish butter, like if you've ever had the Kerrygold butter, how it's got that deeper yellow color than kind of standard American butter usually has. It looked more like that when she opened her can of it. I'm not going to open one right now because, like I said, I bought this for long-term storage. I already have some butter in my freezer. I don't use a lot of butter. As someone who has worked hard to lose weight, butter is something I use very infrequently, and generally just if I'm using a little bit of it to cook something, I might put a tiny bit in the bottom of a pan, and I'm more likely again to use it if I'm cooking for someone else. But as far as me like using butter as something that I would top, well, I was going to say top a bagel or something, I don't eat those anymore either. I used, bagels were like my favorite food. But anyway, I digress, which you're used to. So I now have 12 cans of this, which I figured, hey, shelf-stable butter. Let me see if I can find a date on here. It says store in a cool place. Ingredients, pasteurized cream and salt. That's all that's in it. It is from New Zealand. I did get that part right. Let's see. It just has what you would expect as far as butter in terms of nutrition information. It's a tablespoon is a serving. It says there's 24 servings per container, 100 calories per serving. It's all fat, which of course that's what butter is. 100 milligrams of sodium, which is not terrible. And yeah, that's butter. You wouldn't really expect butter to have different nutrition information than that. I do believe that it said when you got it that there might be a date on the box, but that it was the date of manufacture, not an expiration date. I do not see an expiration date on here. If I do find one, I will continue inspecting this later when you're not having to watch me inspect it. If I do find one, I'll put it in the comments. But I don't see that there's an expiration date on here, and my understanding is that this stuff is shelf stable for years. So I have 12 cans of that. The other thing I bought that might seem a little strange, especially if you're someone who did not grow up familiar with it or eating it, is I bought a case of, and again, it came in a case of 12 cans. Maybe you've had this before, or maybe you're going to look at it and have no idea what it is. I think if you grow up in the Northeast, like I've lived in New York State my entire life, not New York City, people. There's so much more to New York State. But this is like something I remember from my childhood. B&M brown bread in a can. Now, it's got more of the texture of like a quick bread. It's dense. It's not light and fluffy like a standard white bread kind of bread. And it is made with molasses. So if you don't like that sort of richer molasses flavor, which, let's face it, molasses isn't just a sweetener like sugar. It's definitely got its own taste. If you don't like that, then this is a bit of an oddity the first time you try it. And it could be a little bit of an acquired taste. I grew up that you took this out of the can, sliced it into little circles because obviously it's going to come out of the can round, and we usually had it with cream cheese on it. Now, you could put whatever you want on it. You could put jelly, you could put butter, you could have it plain, you could put peanut butter, you could do whatever you wanted with it. But when I saw that this was far more reasonably priced than the butter, I might add, and it didn't have to come all the way from New Zealand, which I'm sure also impacts the price. Let's see the ingredients. Water, whole wheat flour, molasses, dextrose, rye flour, whey, degerminated yellow cornmeal, baking soda, buttermilk, salt, and corn oil. So those are the ingredients. A serving size is considered 2 ounces, which it says is a 1/2 inch slice. So it says there are about 8 servings in this container. It's 130 calories per slice. If you consider a slice to be, picture an eighth of this container would be a slice. 130 calories. Only 5 of those calories are from fat. It's got almost no fat in it. I'm kind of surprised. That's nice to know. It is a little higher on the sodium. It has 400 milligrams of sodium per serving. Lots of carbs, of course. It's a bread product that has molasses in it. So there's no way you're avoiding carbs. But, you can eat it as it is out of the can. Like I said, you can top it with anything. You can also toast it if you want to get a little bit of a crispiness to it instead of just the moister, quick bread consistency. So, yeah, I got 12 cans of this, which was how... I think you could buy a smaller amount, but sometimes you look and the price per unit just is so much cheaper to buy the larger amount that you feel like I'm paying 4 times as much if I buy one than the cost per unit if I just go ahead and buy the 12-pack. And like I said, I remember this stuff from childhood, so I know it's something that I certainly will not mind eating. If it, came down to, hey, we can't get out and get bread, and I felt like having some kind of bread. Not that I eat a lot of bread, but I would eat that. I like it. And you can top it with whatever you want. Last thing I'm going to mention, it's not a food item, but it is sold as a sort of preparedness item. And this might seem a little weird. I had bought them in a much smaller package, a far smaller amount of them the first time I bought them. The first time I bought them was from My Patriot Supply, just to see what they were, check them out. So Amazon had a larger, there's 200 of them, and you're like, Denise, get on with it. What are they? They're compressed, essentially, little washcloths. You may have gotten these like for kids where they sometimes have them with like some sort of picture or character or something on them, and you wet them a little bit and then it kind of rehydrates and it turns into basically a small washcloth. So this bag, which is a little bigger than my head, although not as fat, contains 200 of them. And if you see how small, each one's individually wrapped. You see how small they are. It just makes it really easy to have something that if you needed to have a way to wash up and you didn't necessarily have a way to then do your laundry, so you were not going to be wanting to use that washcloth again. You could pretty much treat these as disposable, although you certainly could, when the opportunity arose, rinse them out, let them dry. Obviously, they're not going to shrink up to this size again. But my thought is you could keep them around as like kitchen rags, dish rags, whatever. But for the convenience of knowing that you would have this many, even if you considered them single use, just during an emergency when you couldn't do laundry but wanted to be able to still have something to clean yourself or clean up spills or whatever, I think this is a smart thing to have on hand. So I was happy when I saw the larger package of them. I think it was a 12-pack that I had bought from My Patriot Supply. And again, I just bought them to try them. And I think they're a good idea. And again, not a foreign concept. Most of us have seen it in the gifty section with like a Disney princess or something on it, because kids find it fun to wet them and watch it turn into a washcloth. So this is the grown-up version. They're just plain white, and they're wrapped like breath mints or something. But again, you can call it prepper crazy, or you can call it, gee, it makes sense to have something like that on hand especially if you're not going to be able to do any laundry, but you do want to be able to continue washing your face and hands and stuff when you need to. Because always got water on hand, and you know, you want to keep up a basic level of hygiene even if there's no running water. You just want to. So I'm going to end there as far as things I got that I consider part of either food preservation or, again, I don't even like using the word prepper because some people have a negative connotation of it. And I used to be one of those people. I used to associate it with like extremists. But I now realize that it is a term that's becoming more mainstream, that people who are not total lunatics and who are just looking to make sure that they have both food security and the ability to, you know, take care of the basics in the event of a natural disaster, or, like I said, whatever you think your disaster might be that you might have to be prepared for. I joke around with my family that I have my zombie apocalypse supplies on hand. Just to clarify, I'm not worried about the zombie apocalypse. But if it happens, I have enough single-use washcloths. And as I think I've mentioned, I make homemade soap. I've got enough soap and washcloths that hygiene will not be an issue during the zombie apocalypse for me and mine. Thank you for watching, and as always, I appreciate your taking the time to check out one of my videos. If you enjoyed it, please share it and like it, and I will see you soon with more stuff that I've gotten and my crazy list of ideas that I'm going to try for canning projects. Have a great day.